She hissed as her body circled around him once, then twice, preparing for the final blow. But just as she was about to complete the third circle, "I command you to stop," Pastor David's voice thundered, cutting through the room like a blade. In the midst of the chaos, the Queen Mother's eyes narrowed with deadly focus. This isn't over. And with that, the coven plunged into darkness, their fury simmering, waiting to strike again. Several years had passed since Onyema's near-death experience in Nneka's hands. The once carefree man had changed, becoming more cautious, especially when it came to women. He had sworn never to allow another woman into his life again. He couldn't risk another Nneka. Raising Ada alone as a single father had not been easy. A bittersweet journey filled with moments of joy and a constant struggle to protect her from the darkness he feared still lingered. He had given up many things for Ada, sacrificing his social life and sometimes even his work. The fear of bringing someone new into their lives kept him isolated, but Ada deserved a normal life, one that wasn't shadowed by his fear. When Ada sat for the Federal Common Entrance exam, her results filled him with pride. Ada had not only passed, but had done so with flying colors and was offered admission into Federal Government Girls College, Ika, a prestigious school, one of the best. It was a moment of relief for Onyema. As much as he adored his daughter, he knew she needed to experience life beyond the four walls of their house. She needed freedom, the chance to grow without the constant worry that clung to him. When the day finally came to drop Ada off at Federal Government Girls College, Ika, the school gates loomed large and the sight of so many parents and students bustling about made Onyema's heart ache. As he helped Ada with her bags, he tried to keep a brave face, but inside, he felt as though he was losing a part of him. Ada, though excited, sensed her father's worry. She hugged him tightly before walking through the gates, her steps confident. Onyema stood by the gate, watching her disappear into the crowd. His heart torn between pride and fear. He whispered a prayer, hoping the darkness of their past wouldn't find its way into her future. In the shadowy depths of the coven, the air was thick with the stench of malevolence. The snake women gathered in a sinister circle. Their glowing eyes reflected the flickering fire in the middle. At the center, the Queen Mother, gigantic, her snake-like features more prominent than ever, slithered forward. Her dark, hollow voice echoed through the eerie silence, sending a chill through the other snake women. Ogba! The Queen Mother's voice boomed, echoing through the cave. Her tone was cold, filled with wrath. From the darkness, Ogba, a young serpent, slithered forward, her body trembling with fear, her heart pounding in her chest, for she knew what was coming. As she reached the center of the gathering, she knelt before the Queen Mother, her head bowed low, not daring to look up. The Queen Mother's eyes gleamed with hatred as she spoke. "You know why you have been summoned, don't you?" Ogba swallowed hard, her body still trembling. "Yes, my queen." "Good," the Queen Mother hissed. "Since Onyema took the life of my beloved Nneka, a life must be taken in return, a child for a child. Onyema's daughter Ada must be brought to me, not just her life, but her soul." Her voice grew darker, her anger palpable. No excuses. Her soul would be a sacrifice. The snake women erupted into a sinister laughter, their hisses filling the air with a haunting melody. Ogba, her face pale and eyes wide with fear, nodded. She could feel the weight of the task placed upon her shoulders. Failure was not an option. "Yes, Queen Mother," she whispered with a shaking voice. "I will not fail you." With a slow bow, Ogba vanished into thin air, leaving the coven in silence. The Queen Mother's eyes gleamed with satisfaction as the snake woman hissed and slithered around her in anticipation of the coming revenge. Before we dive into the spine-chilling tale, this is a plea to you, my amazing viewers who are yet to subscribe, to please Be a part of my growth by subscribing to this channel. You can check out the description box or the icon above to see the first parts of this video. To you, my returning subscribers, thank you so much. Now, brace yourselves because what you're about to watch will leave you on the edge of your seats. In the dense forest surrounding Federal Government Girls College, Ika, Ogba appeared. The rustling leaves whispered her arrival as the cold wind blew through the trees. She looked around cautiously, her form shifting and twisting until she transformed into a young girl wearing the school uniform of a student. She stood still for a moment, admiring her disguise before letting out a soft, eerie laugh that echoed in the still night. Ogba's new appearance was that of an innocent, unsuspecting student, but beneath the facade, the hunger for Ada's soul burned deeply within her. She glanced at the tall walls of the school hostel ahead, her eyes gleaming with a sinister purpose. Suddenly, a sound broke the silence, a sharp crack of a twig underfoot. The school security man, Baba, who had been sleeping on duty, jolted awake. Startled by the noise, he grabbed his torchlight and stood up, sweeping the beam of light through the nearby bushes.
"Who there?"
He called out, his voice thick with sleep. He stepped cautiously toward the source of the sound, shining his torch in every direction. But there was nothing, just the quiet rustling of leaves in the gentle breeze. Baba grumbled to himself.
"This a year student safe. I don't get on my time this night."
He hissed in annoyance, convinced it was one of the mischievous students playing pranks again. Satisfied that there was no immediate threat, he turned around and walked back to his duty post. As he walked away, Ogba's eyes followed him from the shadows, her lips curled into a wicked smile. He had no idea how close he had come to a force beyond his understanding. Federal Government Girls College, Ika, was known far and wide for its excellence. It was a prestigious institution where parents sent their daughters to receive not just education, but to build character. The sprawling campus was filled with laughter, chatter, and the hum of youthful energy, making it a place that many girls cherished. Ada, now having spent a term, had come to love the school. She thrived among her peers, enjoying the camaraderie of her friends and excelling in her academics. Life at FGGC Ika seemed perfect for her. One afternoon, as the bell rang signaling lunchtime, a wave of excitement rushed through the students. They hurried toward the dining hall, eager to eat, share stories, and catch up with one another. The sun hung high in the sky, casting a warm glow over the courtyard where students moved in groups, laughing and chatting. Ada, always surrounded by her close friends, laughed at a joke as they made their way to the dining hall. Her energy was infectious, and those around her loved her free spirit. But among the sea of blue uniforms, hidden in the shadows, Ogba watched intently. Her eyes narrowed as she focused on Ada, waiting for the perfect moment to approach. Ogba's face was calm, her demeanor blending seamlessly with the other students. But beneath the mask of innocence lay a deadly purpose. She needed to get close to Ada, not just physically, but emotionally, to capture her soul. The Queen Mother's orders were clear. Ada's soul was the prize, and failure was not an option. As the crowd of students began to thin out, Ogba moved swiftly, but with caution, as the students were absorbed in their conversations, completely unaware of the evil lurking among them. Then, Ogba saw her chance. As Ada and her friends reached the entrance of the dining hall, one of the girls turned to retrieve something she had forgotten in the dorm. In that moment, Ada was left slightly behind, walking alone. Ogba's lips curled into a small smile. This was her moment. With a friendly grin on her face, Ogba approached Ada, her steps light and careful. "Hi, you are Ada, right?" she said, her voice warm and casual, as though they had been friends for years. Ada turned to face the girl. "Yes, I am," she replied, her friendly nature prompting her to smile back. "Have we met before?" Ogba shook her head, playing her role perfectly. Not really, but I have seen you around. I'm new here and I was hoping to make some friends. Ada's face softened with sympathy. She knew how intimidating it could be to be new in such a large school.
Oh, that's great. We would love to have you join us. What's your name?
She asked, genuinely welcoming. Ogba, she said, though her heart raced beneath her calm exterior. The bond was beginning. Now, all she had to do was wait for the right moment to strike. Ada and Ogba had grown close over the weeks. At first, Ada welcomed Ogba into her circle of friends. Seeing her as just another student eager to fit in, they laughed and studied together. Yet, there were moments when Ada couldn't shake a nagging feeling deep in her gut. Sometimes, she would catch Ogba staring at her a little too long, or there would be odd silences between them that made her feel uneasy. But every time those feelings surfaced, Ada brushed them aside, convincing herself it was just paranoia, lingering from the trauma of her past, especially after everything that had happened with Nneka. One chilly evening, Ada was assigned the unpleasant task of washing a senior's uniform. The senior had scolded her earlier in the day, and Ada, being the respectful student she was, knew better than to refuse. She made her way to the bathroom block with the pile of clothes. The bathroom area was mostly empty, save for a few girls who were either fetching water or cleaning up. Ada scrubbed diligently, the water splashing against the basin as she worked. The rhythmic sound was oddly soothing until it was interrupted by something strange. Ada froze. The sound was unmistakable. A low, menacing hiss. Her heart pounded in her chest. Slowly, she turned her head toward the row of toilets. The hiss came again, this time louder, echoing off the tiled walls. She wanted to run, but something inside her urged her to face her fear. Maybe it was just a leaky pipe, she thought. With shaky hands, Ada stood and cautiously approached the nearest toilet. She hesitated for a moment before pushing the door open. Nothing! The toilet was empty and everything seemed normal. Ada let out a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. I'm just being paranoid, she muttered to herself. But as she turned back to her washing, her eyes caught something through the bathroom mirror. There, clinging to the door behind her, was a massive snake-like creature, more like a monitor lizard, but far too large and grotesque to be anything natural. Its eyes gleamed and its body twisted unnaturally as it watched her. Ada's blood ran cold. She didn't need to turn around to confirm what she had seen. With every ounce of strength she had, Ada screamed, a high-pitched, terrified scream that echoed through the bathroom. The other girls, who had been minding their own business, heard her and instantly panicked. Shrieks filled the air as they abandoned whatever they were doing and bolted for the door, running as fast as their legs could carry them. In the chaos, the creature, aware that its presence had been noticed, slithered quickly out of the bathroom through the window, disappearing into the night. The snake-like creature transformed back into Ogba, her form trembling with fury as she fumed over her failed attempt. Time was running out. The Queen Mother had been clear. Ada's soul was the price to be paid for Nneka's death, and Ogba was running out of opportunities. She couldn't simply kill Ada outrightly. That would be too easy, too merciful. No, she had to capture Ada, drain her soul slowly. But every time she tried to get closer, something seemed to block her. Something in Ada's spirit was stronger than she had anticipated. But Ogba was not one to give up. She had waited too long, trained too hard, and sacrificed too much to let this mission slip away. As she paced through the bush, plotting her next move, Ogba's anger simmered. She would have to be more cunning. After a while, Ogba re-entered the school grounds, carefully slipping back toward the dorm. She couldn't risk being seen by anyone who might suspect something, but she didn't know that her actions hadn't gone completely unnoticed. A few meters away, hidden behind a large tree, two students peeked out, their eyes wide with fear. They had seen it, the transformation. The snake-like creature had turned into a girl, but in the darkness, they hadn't seen her face clearly. Did you see that? One of the girls whispered, trembling. The other nodded, her voice barely audible. We have to tell someone. But who? They exchanged worried glances. Then, without another word, they carefully dashed back toward the hostel. The next day, a wave of excitement and fear rippled through the corridors of FGGC Ika. The air buzzed with murmurs and whispers as students sat in groups, recounting the event of the previous night. The bathroom incident at Bluebell's house had become the talk of the entire school. Some students told exaggerated versions of what they had heard, while others rolled their eyes, dismissing it all as mere gossip. One group in particular had gathered a small crowd, Aku and Nzute. The two girls who had witnessed the transformation were at the center of attention. They were speaking in hushed tones, but the awe and fear in their voices were unmistakable. I swear, we saw it with our own eyes, Aku said, her hands trembling as she spoke. It wasn't just a snake or a lizard. It turned into a girl right in front of our eyes. Nzute nodded. It was dark, but we saw enough. The snake creature slipped into the bushes and then it became one of us, like a student. The other girls around them snickered and shook their heads, clearly not buying the story. One of them scoffed. I beg, stop with all this nonsense. You probably just saw a lizard and your imagination went wild.
Abio.
A snake turning into a student, please. Exactly, another chimed in. This school has so many bush animals around. You are just being dramatic. Aku and Zute exchanged nervous glances, their frustration mounting. We are not making this up, Aku insisted. You weren't there. You didn't see what we saw. Despite the dismissive laughter and teasing, Ada, who had been sitting nearby, overheard every word. Her heart raced as she slowly walked over to the group, her mind swirling with memories of her father's encounter with Nneka. She had learned the hard way that evil could disguise itself in the most unexpected forms. She stood behind the group, listening intently to Aku and Zuti. Unlike the others, she didn't find their story ridiculous. If anything, it resonated with her on a deeper, more terrifying level. Are you sure? Ada finally spoke, her voice steady but laced with concern. The girls turned to look at her, surprised that Ada, usually quiet and reserved, had joined the conversation. Aku and Zute's face lit up with relief, sensing that at least one person might believe them. I'm telling you the truth, Ada. We saw it. Aku repeated. We are not crazy. There is something strange going on. And I know that whatever or whoever it is still out there in this school here in Nika. Ada didn't need more convincing. She already felt the weight of impending danger pressing down on her. A familiar sense of dread creeping in like a shadow. We are not crazy, Ada said softly, but with conviction. I believe you. The laughter and teasing in the group slowly died down as the other girls noticed the seriousness in Ada's voice. A tense silence filled the air and even the skeptics began to shift uncomfortably. But who could it be? Nzuti asked, her voice trembling. How am I supposed to know? I wasn't there, but I intend to find out. As she spoke, a knot tightened in Ada's stomach. There was no doubt in her mind that the creature Aku and Zuti had seen was after someone specific, and though she couldn't yet place it, something told her that this new evil wasn't there by coincidence. The danger was near, and whoever or whatsoever it was, it had a purpose. Later that night, Ogba stood before the mirror in the dark bathroom, her heart pounding with frustration. The fluorescent light above flickered weakly, casting long shadows across the cold tiles. Ada had become more aware of the presence of evil at FGGC Ika, and each failed attempt to capture her soul only made things worse. Ogba stared at her reflection, her mind racing. The longer Ada remained alive, the more difficult it became to bring her down. Fear began creeping into Ogba's bones, something she had never felt before. She clenched her fists, her nails digging into her palms as she considered her next move. There was no turning back now. She had to succeed, but she couldn't do it alone anymore. The task was beyond her, and the only one who could offer help was the Queen Mother. Without hesitation, Ogba took a deep breath and let her body shift, her skin turning into smooth, scaly coils as she transformed into a snake. Her long, slender body slithered up the side of the sink and into the mirror, where she disappeared into the void beyond. In the eerie, dimly lit snake coven, Ogba emerged, her heart pounding in her chest as she approached the enormous figure of the Queen Mother, whose cold, piercing eyes locked into Ogba's. "Why have you returned without completing your mission?" she hissed, her voice sending chills down Ogba's spine. Ogba knelt at the Queen Mother's feet, tears streaming down her face. "Queen Mother," she began, her voice trembling, "I need help. I have tried everything, poisoning her, attacking her directly, but nothing works. And that is more difficult to defeat than we thought." The Queen Mother let out a deafening screech of rage, her massive tail slamming against the ground. "How can a mere child be this difficult to overcome?" she bellowed, her voice echoing through the coven. The other snake women cackled and hissed, mocking Ogba's failure. "You have 2 days!" the Queen Mother growled, her eyes narrowing dangerously. 2 days to bring me Ada's soul. Failure to do so will cost you yours." Ogba's heart sank. She bowed even lower, trembling as she muttered her thanks. Before she could say another word, she vanished from the coven. That night, in the dormitory, Hindetu, one of the students, found herself wide awake. She was pressed and needed to go to the bathroom, but was too afraid. In desperation, she walked over to Ada's bed, her hands shaking as she gently tapped Ada awake. "Ada, Ada," Hindetu whispered, her voice trembling. "Can you please accompany me to the bathroom? I am pressed and too scared to go alone." Ada blinked awake, her mind still foggy with sleep, but she saw the fear in Hindetu's eyes and agreed. Together, they quietly made their way down the dark hallway, their footsteps echoing in the silence. As they approached the bathroom, a strange feeling washed over Ada. Something was wrong. Her heart raced, and the air around her felt thick with tension. She stopped and turned to Hindetu. "Stand behind me," Ada whispered, her voice low but firm. Hindetu obeyed, clutching Ada's arm in fear. With her hand trembling slightly, Ada pushed the bathroom door open. What she saw made her blood run cold. A massive snake was slithering out of the mirror, its glistening scales reflecting the faint light in the room. Ada's heart pounded in her chest as she watched, frozen in place. She quickly turned to Hindetu and signaled for her to remain silent. "Shh! Go get the house captain and other prefects," Ada whispered urgently. "Tell them to come quickly, but be quiet about it. I'll make sure the snake stays here." But Hindetu was too terrified to move. Her legs felt like they were made of lead, and her mind was a whirlwind of fear. She shook her head, her lips trembling. I can't," she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. Ada watched in horror as the massive snake finished creeping out of the mirror, its long, slender body coiling near the sink. Then, with a slow, deliberate motion, the creature faced the wall and began to change. Its body twisted and contorted, shrinking and shifting until, in place of the snake, lay a girl, a human girl. The sight sent shiver down Ada's spine. "Hindetu, please," Ada whispered urgently. "Go get help." But Hindetu was frozen in fear, her wide eyes fixed on the terrifying scene in front of them. Ada realized Hindetu wouldn't be able to move. She was too scared to stay calm. "I'll go," Ada whispered. "Just stay here. Stay hidden. Don't make any noise." Ada had only taken a few steps away from the bathroom when she heard someone running. The poor girl had bolted, too scared to stay behind. As Ada walked back, she realized that the bathroom door was wide open now, the air thick with tension. Slowly, Ada stepped into the bathroom, her eyes darting around the dimly lit room. But to her disappointment and growing terror, the snake girl was nowhere to be seen. Ada stood frozen for a moment, her mind racing. Where had the snake girl gone? And more importantly, who was she? Fear gripped her as she ran out of the bathroom, her heart pounding in her chest. Something terrible was happening, and Ada knew she had to find out who was behind it before it was too late. The moment Ada reached her bed, she collapsed onto the mattress, her chest rising and falling rapidly with fear. Her body trembled uncontrollably, and she quickly yanked the blanket over her head, hoping it would shield her from whatever lurked outside. Her heart pounded as she tried to calm herself down, but the terror from the bathroom encounter with the snake girl kept replaying in her mind. Then, the sound of the door creaking open made her freeze, her breath hitched as her mind raced. Was it just the wind? She clutched the blanket tighter, praying it was nothing more than a breeze. But Ada's heart dropped when she heard a soft slithering sound like something dragging across the floor. Unbeknownst to her, a large black snake had slithered into the room. Its forked tongue flicked in and out, tasting the air as it moved from bunk to bunk, searching for Ada. Ada, still trembling beneath her blanket, heard a strange hissing sound. Slowly, she lifted the blanket a little bit, her eyes widened in horror as she saw a massive snake coiling in the center of the room. The snake's dark glistening scales reflected the faint moonlight coming through the window. Fear shot through her like lightning. "Snake!" she screamed, her voice piercing the silence of the night. Within seconds, the dormitory erupted in chaos. Students leaped from their beds, screaming in terror. Prayers were shouted in desperation as the girls scrambled onto their bunks, throwing anything within their reach at the snake. Pillows, buckets, shoes, anything to keep the creature away. The room became a cacophony of shrieks and cries as fear gripped every single one of them. Meanwhile, Baba, the security guard who had been snoring away at his post, was jolted awake by the deafening screams coming from Bluebell's dorm. Without hesitation, he grabbed his beagle and sounded the alarm, alerting the other security men on duty. Together, they rushed towards the dormitory, their hearts pounding with urgency. Inside the dorm, the snake, now terrified by the commotion, began to slither erratically, looking for a place to hide. Its large size made it impossible to stay concealed as it knocked into beds and walls. The chaos only seemed to intensify, and more girls joined in the screaming from adjacent rooms, even though they hadn't seen the snake themselves. Panic spread like wildfire, and everyone was calling upon their gods for protection. When Baba and his fellow security men burst into Ada's room, the scene was pure pandemonium. The girls, still on their bunks, jumped from one to the other, too terrified to touch the ground. Baba bellowed, ordering everyone to evacuate the room. Without hesitation, the girls fled, leaping from one bunk to the next until they made it out of the door, their feet never touching the floor. Once the room was cleared, Baba and two of his colleagues began searching for the snake with their flashlights. It didn't take long for them to spot it. Its massive body, half concealed under one of the bunks, trembling in fear. With grim determination, the security men launched into action. Baba pulled out his shotgun and aimed it at the snake. A loud bang echoed through the room as the bullet struck the snake, and it darted out from under the bunk, thrashing and tumbling wildly. The other guards joined in, firing round after round at the creature. The snake tumbled across the floor, writhing in pain, its movements becoming sluggish. Then, as the security men prepared to deliver the final blow, something unimaginable happened. The snake began to morph, its body twisting and contorting as its scales peeled away. Before their very eyes, the snake transformed into a young girl, Ogba. The security men screamed in shock, stumbling back as the horrifying reality sank in. The students, hearing the commotion, rushed back into the room, only to be greeted by the sight of Ogba's lifeless body sprawled on the floor. Gasps of disbelief filled the air as the girls whispered in fear. Ada stood frozen, her heart pounding. Her mind raced with questions, but one thought echoed above all the rest. Could it be that she was after me? Back in the snake coven, far beneath the human world, the queen mother let out an ear-splitting scream of rage. Her enormous tail thrashed violently, sending the other snake women flying in every direction. She knocked over anything in her path, her fury boiling over. How could this happen? She bellowed, her voice echoing through the dark cavern. Her power reverberated through the coven as she let out another deafening banshee-like scream, shaking the very walls of her kingdom. If you enjoyed this story and would like to know how the story progressed, please consider subscribing to this channel, not forgetting to turn on the bell notification icon so that once the other part of this video is being posted, you will be the first to be notified. You can also check out these videos here. I promise you won't be disappointed. Till we meet again in my next video, remain blessed.